Today, we look into metals and the influence of recycling. I'm joined by Head of Market Analysis, EMEA and Asia, Rhona O'Connell. Thank you for joining us, Rhona.
Pleasure, Fiona. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you. One of the areas that we have yet to discuss in this precious metals series is recycling. Now, among the four metals that you cover, what are the influences, if any, on recycling?
The white metals, i.e. silver, platinum and palladium, have different profiles from gold. But then gold's unique anyway. Well, I suppose everything's unique, but gold's more unique than others, shall we say, to misquote George Orwell. Gold market, obviously mine supply, and then recycling is a key element. It adds, typically, if you take an average over the last 5-6 years or so, although it can be up and down along with price, typically it adds about 35% equivalent of mine supply into the system. And it's actually the recycling side of the gold market is a very good way of looking at the two different elements, in the sense that you've got the Eastern Hemisphere and the Western Hemisphere. Now, I think we may have talked about this before in gold as such, but in the Western Hemisphere, I'm ashamed to say that jewellery is generally for adornment rather than investment. And in the UK, it's 9 carat, which is only 37% gold, the rest of it's copper. The States is a bit better. They're sort of 18, and the French aren't too bad, actually, they're 14. But generally speaking, particularly for 9 carat gold, which I refuse to wear, if you buy a piece which doesn't have any gems in it, so it's absolutely plain, because of the nature of industry, and you've got fabrication, distribution, local charges, VAT, you name it, you could pay anything between 4 times and 6 times the contained value of the gold in a simple piece of jewellery. Whereas, so it goes off the market and stays off unless someone's in distress, or you start talking to people in taxes who say, taxis with an I, should I be buying gold at the moment? And that's the point where you know it's the top of the market, and some people will be selling it back just because. On the other side of the world, it's much, much higher quality, and typically Saudi Arabia would be 21 carat, and then the further east you go, the higher the caratage. So in the Far East, it's almost exclusively 4 nines, or 99.99%, 24 carat. So when you buy jewellery out there, there will be a little tag on whatever piece you're looking at, showing the weight. Then they will show it. Then they'll weigh it for you in front of you, just to make sure everything's okay. Then they will price it on the basis of the previous afternoon's London LBMA price. Then they'll add on maybe 10% or so for their own fabrication and sunk costs and this, that and the other. So you pay a much lower premium for really high quality kit. And therefore it works the other way as well. If you're in distress or the price is high or you just want to change something out, you'll get maybe 90% of the contained value of the gold. So that's why the recycling is generally bigger over there than it is over here. And there's another much smaller element to it when you've got disused or end-of-life electronic pieces, a little bit of dental. And there's also what in the trade we call new scrap, which is like findings or sweepings on factory floors, which never actually get out into the market, but just go straight back into the mix.
And what about white metals?
Different. Silver industrial scrap is price inelastic, generally speaking. Most scrap is. But it's a smaller component than gold. Typically, again, taking an average over the last 5 years or so, it adds the equivalent of about 23% of mine supply into the market. And it's a function of past industrial activity, obviously. Used to be photographic scrap was the big one. Now it tends more to be things like solders or electrical equipment. Again, end-of-life material. Platinum and palladium. Platinum, funnily enough, is 23% as well from autocats, and then another 7% from spent industrial uses. Palladium's even bigger. It's about 42% from autocats and 7% from other things. But that profile is going to change.
So we've talked about the similarities and differences between demand for platinum and palladium. How do the scrap patterns compare between the two metals?
The autocat sector is a predominant one. And there's other odds and ends in past industrial uses. But where platinum is different from palladium is that there's in-process material in the petrochemical sectors where reforming long chains from crude oil down into things like butane, methane, pentane, octane, as in petrol. That's exactly where it comes from. And there's also elements such as float glass, plate glass, same thing, and fiberglass. And the equipment that they use to operate in those very difficult environments tends to be platinum alloyed with sometimes a little bit of rhodium. So all those pieces of kit will have a finite life, or if they're a catalyst, they will become spent because they'll get degraded. So what platinum users in those industries tend to do is, because they need to replace material and they can't stop their operations, they'll actually be borrowing metal in the market to make sure that they've got enough to put one in. Mm-hmm. What's happened recently with the tightness in the platinum market, with platinum for 1 month currently trading at about 16%, and it should be more like 1 or 2. And we can talk about that another time, because otherwise I know your time is limited. Some of those people are actually just sort of closing their eyes and going out and buying the material rather than borrowing it, because it's much cheaper to borrow the dollars than buy the material. Palladium doesn't have that same sort of circularity. It's concentrated very largely on the autocat sector, as I say, there's above 40%, typically speaking. But where that profile is going to change over time, because of the electrification of the vehicle fleet and generally green technology as a whole, there will come a point where internal combustion engine fueled vehicles, they're not going to be obliterated. It doesn't look like it at all. There's too much consumer resistance, and we're already seeing companies sort of pulling back. But they're going to be a very, very much smaller component of the demand side. And of course, when they come to end of life, they've got catalysts in their exhaust systems, which were previously 80% of demand. That scrap return is going to become much higher, and the offtake into an internal combustion engine is going to be much lower. So there's an awful lot of work going on at the moment to try and save the palladium market, because if nothing happens, then it's doomed, basically.
Well, thank you very much for your analysis, as always, Rhona. Really
pleasure.
Interesting. For more videos like this, please do like and subscribe.